Anyway, let me try to explain everything I know, Quinn said as he grabbed the pencils and wrote a pros and cons list right next to Peter's name. Are you ready? The system asked. While the system explained the difference between a vampire and a vampire ghoul, Quinn would write it down on a piece of paper while explaining it out loud to the others. Why don't we start with the positives? The system said. First, unlike a vampire, a ghoul is not affected by sunlight. The system continued, and so did Quinn. Ghouls are stronger, faster, and can see better than a human, but their main strength is their incredible healing abilities. They are even more impressive than yours, Quinn. Broken bones, chunks of flesh will be instantly healed on the spot, Vorden said. Peter, this means we can just say you have a self-healing ability. There are a few of them out there, although we will have to keep it a secret from the school since they all think you have an earth ability. Now the next bit of information is more for you, Quinn, the system said. Ghouls are most loyal to their maker. The main reason for this is because your blood resides inside their body. Unfortunately, what this means is you will need to supply Peter with your blood, otherwise his body will start to deteriorate and eventually will cease to exist. As long as he gets a supply of your blood, then he will live on forever by your side. What do you mean by loyal? Quinn asked. Similar to how your charm skills work, whatever you command, Peter will feel like he has no choice but to obey, although this does depend on the amount of your blood that remains inside his body. The longer he goes without a new dose of blood, the less inclined he will be to follow your orders. What about human blood? Will I need to drink that? Peter asked as he gulped, feeling a strange new hunger in his stomach. No, there is no need to drink human blood, Quinn replied. Actually, unlike me who gets stronger from human blood, it will not affect you. Now, time for the cons, the system said. Hearing these words made Quinn's hand shake a little, and the others could see this as he was getting ready to write down what the system was telling him. First off, the ability for Peter to eat regular food has completely disappeared. If he eats regular food, he will immediately throw it back up. Then does he just have to live off my blood then? Quinn asked the system. No, the blood is a rare thing and will hardly be needed. I would more often feed Peter just to keep him loyal to you, but still, a ghoul needs a food source, the system replied. A ghoul needs to feed on human flesh. The pencil in Quinn's hand had dropped onto the table and rolled onto the floor. Peter, you're not feeling hungry by any chance, are you? Quinn asked. I'm feeling a bit peckish. I haven't eaten since this morning after all, Peter replied honestly. Peter, maybe it's best if you sit down for this, Quinn said. What? Why? Peter looked at him, fidgeting. You're making me even more scared. Just sit down, Quinn said. But as he said these words, his eyes started to glow a little. Peter didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to complete the task immediately. After sitting on the bed, Quinn was trying to find the best way to put the bad news into words. I can see this is troublesome, so let me give you a solution for now, the system said. As a temporary measure, he might be able to last a few days on raw animal meat, but sooner or later you will have to grab him human flesh. He looked Peter in the eyes and finally found the courage to tell him, being a ghoul means you can no longer eat regular food. You're going to have to eat raw meat from now on. Just then, Vorden and Quinn decided to head to the nearby convenience store to grab some things as a test while they asked Peter to stay in the room. Once again, although Peter was scared and wanted to come with them, a certain feeling was passing from Quinn and on to Peter, making him feel like he had to obey. As the two of them walked to the convenience store, Quinn was awfully quiet, which made Vorden suspicious that Quinn was holding something else back. Go on, tell me then, Vorden said. You could have gone to the shop on your own, but you wanted me to come along. It's about Peter, Quinn said quietly. I didn't tell Peter everything. Being a ghoul doesn't mean he has to eat raw meat. He needs to eat raw human meat. Raw animal meat will only work for a short time. Suddenly, Vorden stopped in his tracks. Quinn, I'm being serious when I suggest this here, but wouldn't it be better to just kill Peter? And before you say anything, hear me out. He's not the type of guy who can handle this, and if he gets caught, then don't think he won't give you in. He won't. He can't, Quinn replied. How can you be so sure? Vorden asked, a bit surprised by Quinn's sudden answer. It was hard for Quinn to explain, but he could feel the connection between the two of them now. Essentially, Peter's whole existence now depended on him, and as long as Quinn asked for it, Peter would do it. Well, I can tell you won't take my suggestion, but let me tell you this then, Vorden said. Taking a life isn't as easy as you think. Finally, the two had returned to the dorm room where Peter had stayed waiting for them. He was in the same spot as when the two had left him. That smells nice, Peter said. What did you bring?" They placed the raw steak out on a plate and put it right in front of Peter. "Is he going to eat it?" Vorden said. "I don't know, it looks pretty good to me as well," Quinn replied. "I can't tell if you're trying to be funny or what, man," Vorden said, with a disgusted look on his face. It didn't take long for Peter to dive in. His once dull teeth had turned sharp like a lion, helping him rip the meat to pieces, and after only a couple of minutes, the whole steak had been devoured. But the only one that got a good night's sleep was Peter. The other two were lost in thought. Vorden couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he was sleeping in a room with a cannibal. At least Quinn would only suck his blood, but with Peter, he might wake up with an arm missing. While Quinn was thinking along similar lines. "System, do you know how long until he starts craving for human flesh, and will I still be able to control him?" Quinn asked. "His hunger will outgrow your commands, but he will not attack you. However, about a time frame, I am unsure. Best case scenario is a week." "And worst case?" Quinn asked. "Tomorrow." The next day had arrived, and when Vorden had woken up, he had faint bags under his eyes. Quinn eventually managed to get some sleep, but he didn't seem to have fared much better either. "Didn't get much sleep?" Quinn asked. Vorden shook his head while looking at Peter, who seemed to still be sleeping peacefully away. "At least he still looks like a human." Within the next 2 days off, Quinn knew he needed to hurry and find a solution to Peter's situation. While Quinn was thinking about what to do, a knock was heard at the door. When they opened the door, they were surprised to see Layla there. "It seems like she has calmed down a bit," Layla said. "Anyway, what about him?" Quinn then went on to explain what had happened to Peter and how he had turned into a ghoul. When Quinn mentioned this, her face immediately dropped. "Oh, I almost forgot," Vorden said, as he went under his bed and pulled out a small bag before throwing it over to Quinn, who caught it. Quinn opened the bag and noticed that it seemed to be full of crystals. "You mean these are—" Quinn asked with a look of excitement on his face. "Yep, the winged lizard crystals you asked for," Vorden replied with a smile. Looking in the bag, there looked to be around 30 of them. Quinn couldn't imagine what the group must have done to be able to obtain this many. Right now, though, he had enough crystals to create a costume for himself. If he could use this to create a full set of clothing, then he would finally be able to fight during the day. Vorden could see that Quinn seemed to be struggling with something. "Just go do whatever you need to do," Vorden said. "Layla and I can deal with the problem. I have an idea anyway." "Are you sure? What about the others? Do you want me to pay you guys for these?" Quinn asked. "Are you joking?" Layla said. "Quinn, if it wasn't for you back then when the Dalki attacked, we would have all lost our lives. The least we could do is give you these crystals for free." Quinn looked at them one more time. "All right, just let me know if there are any problems. I should be in the VIP area just above." After that, Quinn quickly rushed out of the room with the crystals in his hand. Inside the second-year building, Duke was sitting down at his desk smoking a cigar in his office. "Damn, that True Dream guy is coming again," Duke said to himself. The door to the room then swung open as one of the sergeants with an afro on the top of his head and sunglasses came walking in. "Sir, I brought the list of names that you asked for." "Let's see. Looks like we have a good mix of abilities here," Duke said. "And you've checked the background of all of these? There will be no complaints from important families if something was to go wrong, correct?" "Yes, sir." At the top of the list of names, one of the students' pictures was being displayed. It was a picture of Peter Chuck. It was their day off. Early in the morning, Quinn went out to meet up with Logan. He had left both Layla and Vorden behind to keep an eye on Peter. Quinn had told them that at some point, Peter would be required to eat human flesh. It could take up to a week, but it could also be tomorrow. It could also be as soon as today, Vorden thought to himself. "Come on, Peter," Vorden said. "Let's head outside." "Outside?" Peter asked, his tone slightly confused. "Well, if I were you, the first thing I'd want to do was to test out my new powers. Why don't we take a look at what you can do now?" "I think that's a great idea," Layla said. The three of them grabbed a few things and got ready to go outside. Just as they were about to leave, Peter stopped by the entrance. "Don't worry," Layla said. "Even Quinn doesn't burn under the sunlight. He just feels weak and sluggish. Besides, just in case Quinn was wrong, I brought an umbrella with me." Peter closed his eyes and stepped outside under direct sunlight. Just as Quinn had said, he didn't feel any weaker than before. He felt the same on the inside as he did outside. The group walked toward the park. They continued to walk until they had finally found a quiet and clear area in the woods that was devoid of trees. It was also hidden from view. "This place is perfect. Besides, if anyone comes close, we will be able to hear them in time," Vorden said. "What should we test first?" Layla asked. "How about strength and speed?" Vorden said as he walked up to Layla, holding out his hand. "Do you mind?" "Fine." She held out her hand and allowed Vorden to copy her abilities. The two of them then lifted a bunch of branches and sticks off of the ground. "Just do your best to avoid the sticks as much as you can," Vorden shouted. "Looks like not only has his speed gotten better, but his reflexes as well," Vorden said. "But he's still Peter." Peter nodded when he was ready, and the two of them immediately started to hover the sticks up in the air, aiming to hit Peter with them. For Peter, it was the first time that he felt confident during practice. It was like he could see the attacks coming towards him. Just then, Vorden timed both sticks at the same time. Peter pulled his body back, avoiding the first stick. Then, the second one from behind came right at his face, but he still managed to catch the second stick out of the air at the last second, just as he pulled his face back. However, the tip of the stick still managed to cut his cheek, drawing the smallest amount of blood. "Oh, sorry, Peter," Vorden yelled as the two of them rushed over. But by the time they reached him, the blood had fallen to the ground, and the cut that was once on Peter's cheek was no longer there. "Looks like the super healing can be checked as well," Vorden said with a smile on his face. The next test they had for Peter was his strength. For this trial, they used a simple tree. "So, you want me to just punch a tree?" Peter asked, looking at it carefully. "Just go for it," Layla said. "You already know that you have super healing." "But that doesn't mean I don't feel any pain," Peter said. But he was also curious to see how much stronger he had gotten. He readied himself and looked at the tree, then pulling back his fist, he swung it outward. As he hit the tree, he had done so at an odd angle, causing his wrist to bend on impact. He screamed out in pain. When they looked at the tree, there was a large dent that had been made. "Well, we know you have abnormal strength, that's for sure, but I think there's a clear difference between you and Quinn," Layla said. "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "Well, let's say if Quinn was to do the same thing. Even if he didn't punch the tree dead on, his wrist probably would have been fine. I think that's because his body is stronger than that of a regular human," Layla explained. "While yours, although you have super strength, your body is still just like ours, made of regular bones and flesh. If you attack at full power, you will probably end up hurting yourself." As soon as Layla had finished explaining, the wristwatch on Peter's arm lit up. When he looked at it, he could see a voice message that had been left. "This is General Duke. Peter Chuck, you are required to come to my office in the second-year building immediately. I have some important things to discuss with you." As soon as Vorden heard the message, there was no longer any need for him to ask Peter who was behind everything. He had already figured it out. Why else would the head of the second year have anything to do with the first year? The problem now was, how could he go up against a general of a military base?
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.